The reality of modern veterinary market is that being busy is no longer a guarantee of being profitable. In fact, for many owners, high volume is actually masking a slow motion collapse of their margins. Welcome back to the Veterinary Business Podcast. I'm your host, Don Adeesha. It's great to have you here. Now, to help us move beyond the busy trap and build a hospital that is truly a transferable asset, we're joined by none other than Dr. Tina Neel. Dr. Neel is the founder of Neel Veterinary Hospital and the CEO of Angimal Inc. Now, she has spent 40 years proving that you don't have to choose between being a great doctor and being a wealthy business owner. She has successfully mastered both of those at the highest level. Now, today we are discussing sustainable profitability. We're going to talk about high level communication and, of course, how to build that transferable practice value. This episode is brought to you by Echo Marketing, our platinum sponsor. Echo helps veterinary practices attract high value clients through strategic, data driven digital marketing, ensuring your online presence matches the quality of care you provide in the clinic. With that being said, Dr. Neel, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's one of my favorite subjects.
So, Dr. Neel, you've spent decades in veterinary medicine as a clinician, as a hospital founder, entrepreneur, and more recently, a biotech leader. What do you believe separates a veterinary practice that simply stays busy from one that becomes truly valuable?
Well, I think that what separates it is paying attention to the culture, the communication, and being able to educate yourself somewhat into business. And I have some, odd theories about things. For some people. But I think communication is the biggest situation, and you have to understand your market, the veterinary practices, and what and what people are looking for in a veterinary hospital. And it doesn't mean that you have to be the busiest practice in the world. You have to practice quality medicine, but you also have to be able to communicate to your clients well, so that they become constant clients, and you can repeat this. And at the point you want to leave practice, that you have something that's saleable and marketable and valuable to other people.
Now, you mentioned what people are looking for in veterinary market. Can you tell us what people are actually looking for in a veterinary practice when they're coming in as patients, and what are we getting so wrong?
Well, I think we actually, in our practice in Prosper, Texas, we had a survey done of actual people in the area, and the doctor's qualifications as in degrees and things like that was way down on the list. It was the high thing on the list was the ability to get the care on the hours that they needed it. And it was the communication skills of the doctor, where they felt heard and understood, and they felt that they were caring. They can't really tell how good a doctor you are as far as your technical skills, but they can certainly tell how empathetic you are, and how willing you are to listen to them.
Mm. Wow, that's eye-opening right there. The credentials being a bit lower on the lists
It was
compared to,
it
but
was like
still.
10, it was like 10th out of 10. It
Oh,
was,
wow.
yeah, it was way down the list, 9th or 10th.
But I appreciate that they really appreciated the outcome and
Yes,
how they got to the outcome. That's what I'm understanding, right?
yes.
Um, yeah, and how they were taken through. Okay, Now Fluffy is in good condition. The communication that was done. Now, communication is one of your major focus areas. Where
Yes.
do you see veterinary teams struggle most when communicating with pet owners, and how does that affect compliance, trust, and of course, patient outcomes?
It's highly important. And if you, my mantra has always been that I think that the clients want to have me help them get their pet to live a long and healthy life as pain-free and comfortably as possible. And that's my job. And if I cannot communicate how cleaning their teeth here is going to result in them not having heart murmurs develop, or in cats, kidney problems develop, or it's less likely to, then I do the dog a disservice and the cat a disservice, which is a disservice then to their pet parents. And it's a big disservice to the veterinary profession in general. So if you cannot communicate and have them understand, then you failed. You failed that pet. You failed their parents, and you failed yourself and the veterinary profession. So it's until they tell me they want to take their dog out and shoot it, I assume that I am supposed to help them get to that point. And that's not always about doing a surgery or doing a dental. It's explaining to the clients how you're going to get from here to there, and your pet is going to live a long and healthy life as long as we can keep it pain-free and comfortable. So every time when I was in my Neel vet practice and we did GP, specialty, and ER, every time I saw a dog that had been a patient for numerous years come in at 7 with a pyometra, I felt like I knew we had failed. That is a failure of communication because we did not explain to the client well enough why spaying their dog was going to eliminate this problem, which is going to cost way more anyway, and possibly result in the pet's death. So that's how I've always looked at it. And I do not want to be failing at taking care of my pets, my clients' pets. So it's a very passionate thing for me that they understand. And they, in fact, I write pet parent newsletters to get things out to people that I know they're not getting on a day-to-day basis because the hospital's busy and you don't have time to get everything done. Then, that's a problem. And that's another example of why a really busy practice, if you're just going and going and going, that you've got to make sure that you have time to communicate properly with the client, or nobody's going to win in that situation. Particularly not pet.
Right. So in this sort of heart-centered communication, how does that coexist with a high efficiency business model? How can we balance those two things out?
Well, you need, I teach a communication class. It's 6 weeks long, subject each week, of different areas of practice. And I teach how you get the owners to see that you're here and it's going to end up there. And that's the outcome that they want. And so you need to practice that. You have to, and worse, more than that, you have to believe it. If you believe that, for example, cleaning their teeth is going to help them not develop congestive heart failure when they're older because they have mitral valve disease, then it's pretty easy to tell them. And it's pretty easy for the client to notice that you fully believe it. So it doesn't take long hours of talking to them. And some people, you've got to say it several times, several visits and whatnot. But it's a really important thing for you as the doctor to believe it. And if you believe it, you should be able to convey that belief. And it doesn't take as long. Also, your staff needs to believe in it too, because your staff, sometimes the clients feel better about talking to the staff or asking their opinions. And you don't want your opinions to be at polar opposites of what your staff is. So they can, they can bring up these subjects. And so that when you are talking to them about it, then they've already been kind of, somebody has told them about it. So it's not a foreign thing to them.
Check. Now, Dr. Neel, ultrasound can be a powerful diagnostic tool in veterinary practice. How can practices use services like ultrasound more strategically to improve care while also supporting profitability?
I got my first ultrasound in March of 2000. So I've had an ultrasound for 26 years. I've had, in that 26 years, about every 3 years, I get a new one. Because that's my, some people buy new cars, I buy new ultrasounds. But because I get a lot of use out of it and I enjoy it. And it's so much different now than when I had a brand new $3,000 analog ultrasound machine. And I look back on the images from that and I think, oh my gosh, it's amazing we found anything. But what's really important is, if you are going to practice good medicine, then you need to use the diagnostics that tell you a lot. And if you're going to tell me, I'm going to x-ray for a foreign body or I'm going to do an ultrasound, and I have to pick between the two, it'll always be an ultrasound. Because unless on the x-ray you see a bone or a piece of metal, you can't tell for sure there's a foreign body. And you can line up all the radiology specialists and they'll tell you that they think it is, but they can't tell. And on an ultrasound, you can almost always see it for sure. So that's real important. Another thing, it's a money generator but it's generating money in well-placed areas, because I have a rule that nobody starts treating a diabetic other than for emergency care without doing an abdominal ultrasound. Because about half the time, in my experience, diabetics are that way because they have Cushing's disease or they have pancreatitis. And if you don't address those two, you'll never regulate that dog right. So what happens if you don't do that? Say they're going to spend $500 on an abdominal ultrasound, and they say, I don't want to do that. I explain to them, this is what happens when you don't do that, and there's an underlying cause, is that pet is not going to regulate out, so you're going to be giving injections, changing things all the time. The pet's not going to be right. It's going to still be drinking and urinating. It's going to feel bad. It's going to get worse, and 6 or 12 weeks down the road, somebody wakes up and says, maybe I better check and see if there's something else going on because I haven't been able to regulate this pet. Well, in my opinion, you should have done that ultrasound to start with. And if you do the ultrasound and everything's okay, then yes, they spent $500. Maybe they could have skipped. But if you don't do that, and you can look at different breeds of animals that have a high propensity for Cushing's, but there's all kinds of dogs that have pancreatitis. And if you don't get that figured out, those dogs are suffering. And to the parents, the pet parents, they are suffering. And they are suffering because they're upset and dealing with constantly coming in, and they're going to spend more money because they have to keep coming in and getting glucose curves, or they have to hospitalize them and that sort of thing. So to me, it's a no-brainer to do an ultrasound on a diabetic. And there's just, it's just a wonderful tool.
It's a wonderful tool. And like you said, it can really help frame things in the correct perspective. If you weren't getting this $500 ultrasound here, just along the line, your pet's going to get their condition worsened, and then you're going to have to do even more medical treatments that are going to cost you a lot more. And
that's it. Exactly true. And as important as money is to people, their pet suffering is
that's right.
Hugely important to them. And so I always say, puppies and kittens they grow up, but they don't grow up to be nasty teenagers like your two-legged babies are, and you want them to leave home for a while. And so you have to take care of them, and you, as the pet parent, have to make the right decision. But you've got to have some good veterinary support to be able to make those decisions correctly.
That's right. So it's the veterinarian's job to really help the pet owners understand the right decision and what that looks like. Check. We're going to take a pause here. Now, that point about profitability is really important because strong veterinary hospitals are not built on clinical care alone. It also depends on how clearly pet owners understand your value before they ever walk through the door. A practice may have excellent medicine, strong diagnostics, and a great team, but if the right clients are not finding you, trusting you, or following through, growth can still feel inconsistent. And that's where Echo Marketing's complementary marketing strategy meeting can be helpful. Now, think of it as a diagnostic for your own practice's growth. You'll sit down with Lila, a veterinary marketing strategist, and look at where your marketing is really showing the signs, what it's helping attract the right clients, where there may be gaps, and how your online presence can better support the kind of profitable, high-value practice Dr. Neel is talking about. Now, for practice owners who want more clarity around growth, you can go ahead and book your complimentary marketing strategy meeting at veterinarybusinessinstitute.com/MSM. That's veterinarybusinessinstitute, one word, .com/MSM. Now, Echo only takes a limited number of complimentary meetings each month, so it's worth reserving a spot while one is available. Let's get back to our conversation now. Dr. Neel, many veterinary owners are excellent doctors, but they struggle with the business side of running a hospital. Now, what are the key areas they need to understand if they want to build a more profitable and sustainable practice?
Well, they really need to know their numbers. Where is the money going? And they need to understand that you've got fixed expenses and you've got to get those covered. As long as you have your door open, you're going to have your electric bill, your rent payment, or your mortgage payment. You're going to have your insurance payments. You're going to have your ongoing expenses. And so for a long time, I spent probably 11 years, last 11 years of my original large practice in VMG, veterinary management groups. And I think that you can get a lot of information from your accountant. You can get a lot of information from joining groups like VMG. And they help teach you how to look at your books and see where your money is actually going. And fortunately, my husband had a finance degree, and we started our main practice as a house call practice years ago, and then morphed it into the big hospital. And he did a lot of that work where I focused more on technology and veterinary medicine. So I had a kind of a secret weapon in my husband. But you can, as practice owners, you can learn how your money is being spent, and are you spending it in the right place? In other words, can you get better deals on your drugs that you're using and selling? Are you paying out enough for and not too much for your doctors and your staff? I always paid doctors and staff larger amounts than what was average. But I felt like as long as they were the great staff that I wanted them to be, then they deserved a good standard of living. And we would make up funds from what we paid to the drug distributors and things like that. And and you have to realize that after you get through those first expenses and those are all paid for, then everything that you make after that is much more profitable. It's probably 80% profit because you've already paid all that overhead and you paid your staff, but now you've already covered the payments for all the fixed expenses. So growing is very helpful to make them more profitable. And I always said I didn't really worry about the bottom line a lot. If I had good communication skills, I worked up my cases well. And the only way you can work up your cases well is be able to communicate why that's necessary to the clients. And so you communicate with them, you practice great medicine, you charge for what you do, and you collect. In the end, it'll work out. But there's just things you have to pay attention to. And if you communicate that, you will have people doing more things that are better for the pet. It will make you more known. You'll get more referrals and things like that. And that's all, all very helpful to, building that practice. But it's amazing how many practices had theft in their practice from their staff. And you have to know these things can exist, and you have to set up systems and processes to keep that from happening. And you have to, my husband used to say, well, you need to have a rule for everything. And I'd say, well, it kind of depends, it depends on what's happening. But he's right. You really need a set of, for the average and most of the things you're going to see, you need to have a process set up and a systems and how it should be taken care of so things don't fall through the cracks.
Check. A lot of great things there. I'm just thinking you should have a really great husband should be the first part of that. And if they're
yeah, you find a good husband. It took me 2 tries, but I found one. So we've been together. We'll be married 40 years this summer.
Oh, that's great. That's another achievement. Congratulations, Dr. Neel.
Thank you.
Now, I'm just curious, just a quick follow-up on that previous question there. Now, in this era of absolutely massive labor costs rising, and what is perhaps the one business metric that owners should ignore and one they should obsess over, so we can get like real practical for our listeners here?
As far as in metrics, I think one of it is retention. Now, we have a different type of hospital. We are ER and specialty. And so you don't really have retention. You get a lot of referrals from that. But we're not trying to take clients from other hospitals. They refer them to us, and then they go back for the things that those hospitals do. But you need to, depending on what type of practice you have, you need to look at your retention numbers. And in a practice like ours, you need to look at your referral numbers, because those are things that, you have to have your customers coming in, and you need to be able to see if there's a problem there. And if there's a problem there, you need to figure out what is causing your retention to be off. And if there's not referrals coming, then you need to find out, why is it? Are you not communicating with the referring doctors enough? Are you, people that live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, and you don't want to be throwing people under the bus. Because I tell clients this when they come in and say, well, why didn't that doctor know this? I'd say, I'm seeing it 2 weeks later, and I don't know what things look like then, but I know that they've changed. And I don't say this to them, but I also know that a lot of times that doctor did tell them these things, but they ignored it or didn't listen or something. And so they may have told them the same things I told them, but, the owners don't seem to remember that sometimes. That's why good documentation and records is important.
Mm-mm-mm. And what's the one metric that we should kind of ignore?
I think, honestly, I think that you have to price your business correctly. But you see this all the time in the corporates, corporately owned practices, that their metric is, they're looking at what is their pricing. And so if you have an accountant or a corporate that's telling you you've got to raise prices, at some point people get tired of it and quit. So I don't tend to look at that as much. I look at what the bottom line is, and is that appropriate for my type of practice in my area, and then I'm happy with it. If it is, if it isn't, then I look to see, where is that profitability going? And because you have to have a good, profitability to be able to pay your staff appropriately. And they're the backbone of the practice, of keeping it together.
That's a great metric. And P is driven purely by profit. So they will raise the prices until, people can't afford it. Right? They will raise it until that. Yeah. But if you were able to find your piece with the market that you're in, and you're, not losing out.
Right.
And you can give affordable care, I think in the long run, you win. Is that correct, Dr. Neel?
Yeah, that's how I feel like I win. Honestly, you have to watch yourself to not give too many things away. But over the years, I've found, you've helped people out when they couldn't afford it truly. And then they come back when they can afford it and do, everything that you would like them to do because it's, the best practice. So, and I tell my staff on my doctors, if we're not here to make a decision and you have to make a decision, you make it based on the golden rule is put yourself in that client's position and how would you want to be treated? And then you do it that way. And nobody's ever going to yell at you about that because that's the best way, in my opinion, to make decisions in life, period. But in veterinary medicine, it applies too.
Okay, that's a great rule. Now, Dr. Neel, for owners who may eventually want to sell their practice, what should they start thinking about years before a sale to make that business stronger, more transferable, and more attractive to buyers?
You need to know who's probably going to buy your practice. Are you looking at a doctor in your practice that's going to take over someday? Things like that. If you're looking at selling corporately, that's a whole kind of a different ball game. But you need to start getting your practice ready for sale multiple years beforehand. And a lot of it is cleaning up your books. There's a lot of practices over the years that ran personal expenses through their hospital, which is illegal, and the IRS doesn't like that at all. So, but a lot of people over the years have done that, and you have to clean up your books. So, and the other thing is if, for example, I've seen a lot of older veterinarians, they paid for their building. Their profitability is not base, it's higher than it should be because they're not paying themselves rent for that building. And so you really have to clear up things like that. Like, are there family members on working that actually are not working, or that sort of thing. So you need to clean all that out of if you're a practice owner that does that type of thing. And because if you sell, those books are going to be inspected and they're going to look at it, like if I buy this practice, well, I'm going to have to pay for that building or I'm going to pay rent for that building. And if, for example, if $500,000 was the net, the profitability, and I am actually going to have to pay $7,000 a month in rent to that owner, or if I purchase it, I'm going to have to pay it to the bank, then that lowers it, by, $90,000, $84,000. So you really don't have a $500,000 profitability. It's getting closer to $4. So those are things that, are important. And you have to look at these things and be able to tell them, that this is all clear because they're going to go through it. And and there's other ways to make your hospital more profitable by adding services. You can, as an example, when my husband and I would buy practices, we would look at their books and decide what we could do that would improve it. A lot of times it was that they were not doing very detailed, like they'd only do spays and neuters and mild dentistries, the low-grade dentistries. But had they added that and learned skills that they could do splenectomies or they could do a foreign body and keep that in their hospital, then they could, do better. And so when we looked at hospitals, we'd look at them and say, can I put a doctor in this hospital that can do this? And that would increase the profitability of the hospital.
Mm.
So whether you're selling or you're just trying to, do better, you can get your profitability up by adding things. And that's not just something you can do in 6 months. You've got to start early.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that insight from a buyer's perspective as well on what you're really looking for when you're looking to buy and what you're thinking through. Okay, how am I going to improve this when I take over? Now, I'm just curious. You mentioned cleaning up the books. How are we going to get started with that? What's a great place to start?
With your accountant and yourself, and you need to look at what, did you pay for, say an extension on your house and put it off to something else, I mean, that's kind of extreme, but you just clean out all those little things, and you really should have a credit card that's for business expense and a credit card for a personal expense, and you shouldn't mix those and that sort of thing. And also over the years, I've had several different accountants, and it's a good thing to invest in a decent accountant, an accountant that understands the veterinary profession too. And they can help you with that. And like I said, joining groups that are business management oriented or attending classes for those can be really helpful.
Okay, that's great. Now, to wrap things out over here, I got an interesting question. Now, you've gone from practicing in the analog age to launching biotech and AI companies, right? So,
Yes.
what's perhaps one piece of old school vet wisdom you think we are in danger of losing in the digital age?
Oh, I think the personal communication. It's because it's not really the digital's taking it over. It's that people are raised in such digital manners that, my grandkids are on their iPhones and their iPads all the time, and they're playing Roadblocks and doing FaceTime and everything. But they really don't have as good as social skills in explaining to clients and that sort of thing. So I think understanding other people is something that the digital age is creating problems in. And I find that a lot of newer, younger doctors don't really like dealing with people. And for, a lot of people become veterinarians because they don't really like people and they like animals. Well, that's like becoming a pediatrician and hating the parents. They're not going to come back and bring their kids to somebody that dislikes them and can't communicate with them. So I think that's one thing. I use a lot of digital. I will I'll dictate into ChatGPT everything I'm thinking about a case, all the facts, and then I'll say, make it in bulleted points. And I have it set up how I like it to go. And then I text that or email it to the client, and along with the ultrasound I did. And then I go back and call them and talk to them about it. But they've already read the report, which they don't really understand. And then they have my summary and synopsis of what's going on, what I see, what I found, what I think is going on, and how I want to handle it. And then they have that, and then we have a conversation about it. So it's it's kind of super helpful in a way, but it's also damaging in that people aren't used to really talking to other people. And since I think communication's the biggest part of veterinary medicine, then that becomes problematic for them. And it's stressful for people that don't really like to talk or don't understand how to communicate with pet owners.
Right. What a wonderful takeaway there, because yeah, the reason veterinarians are really brilliant people
Mm-hmm.
overall. Truly, they are some of the most, hardworking, most empathetic towards
Mm-hmm.
animals,
Right.
towards another being. But when it comes to human interactions, yeah, social
It's not
skills
as
is
good.
something. Yeah, I mean, what a great point there, and a reminder too, because that's the problem. We forget that that's a skill, and it's a skill that is necessary not just in survival but also to thrive in life.
Yeah, that's true. It's important wherever you go. Um, uh, so it's something that people should try to work on, and and a lot of people, it just doesn't come natural to them. And if you're one of those people, then you've got to develop and think about how can I best communicate so I can get the best for the pet I'm trying to help. Because reality is, almost everybody that's a veterinarian went to school to be a veterinarian because they love animals, not because they thought they were going to get wealthy. And so they might hope they get wealthy, but the first thing that drove them to looking at veterinary medicine is the pets and the animals, and whether it's farm or whatever, they wanted to help take care of that. And if you cannot communicate, you cannot accomplish the goal of helping those pets. And
Mm.
so that's as much or more important as learning to do any veterinary procedure, because you're never going to get to go do those procedures if you don't know how to communicate to the client that by doing this procedure, your dog is or cat is going to live a longer, healthier, pain-free life. So,
Check. There we go. Importance of people-to-people communication.
mhm.
Now, Dr. Neel, where can the people find you and get in touch with your work?
They can go to my webpage at tinaneel.com. You can also read my articles on LinkedIn as Dr. Tina Neel, and on Substack, I write a surviving cancer newsletter and articles, and as Dr. Tina Neel.
Check. Amazing. Thank you very much, Dr. Tina Neel, for joining us here this evening.
I really appreciate you having me on and letting me talk. I like to talk. And I like to help.
And we'd also like to give a shout out and a thank you to Equa Marketing, our platinum sponsor, for supporting the Veterinary Business Podcast, and for practice owners listening in who want more clarity around what is actually driving growth in their practice. Remember that Equa is giving you a complimentary marketing strategy meeting. You can go ahead and book yours at veterinarybusinessinstitute.com/MSM. I'll repeat that one last time. Veterinary Business Institute, that's one word, .com/MSM. I'm Don Adeesha, and thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.